live from Melbourne. Please welcome your new hosts of That Startup Show, Benjamin Law and Ray Johnston.
Hello and welcome to Season 2 of That Startup Show.
My name is Benjamin Law and I'm thrilled to be here to guide and celebrate your startup success with my fellow host, Ray Johnston.
Or to mercilessly mock the circus that is startup life.
Occasionally.
Tonight's episode is all about the legends of the startup world and the myths.
Aren't myths and legends the same thing?
Well, that is a common misconception, Ben, which means it's complete BS.
Whereas a legend is only partial BS.
Basically, yeah. Look, everyone wants to be legendary, but it's probably best not to be totally mythical.
So is the startup story a fairy tale where you all live happily ever after? Or is it more like Oedipus Rex, where you destroy your parents and end up gouging out your own eyes?
Let's hope it doesn't come to that.
Your eyes, people. Are you really going to risk your eyes?
They don't have to gouge out their eyes, Ben.
It's a metaphor. The eyes of the soul, gouged right out of your soul.
It's easy to believe the myths spread about startups, especially the ones that say you're going to make gazillions overnight.
Though if you do want to be rich, try investing in my cryptocurrency, the Ben coin.
Is that a myth?
Or will it become legend?
Of course, the greatest mythical creature in the startup world is the unicorn, the startup company worth over $1 billion.
Eileen Lee coined the term back in 2013 to indicate the rarity of such a company. Now, unicorns don't exist, which suggests those 200 plus companies are stupidly lucky, or they've convinced us of something we all desperately need to survive, like activewear.
We don't need activewear to survive? I need activewear to survive. Look, so how do you create your own unicorn? Do you take a sturdy workhorse of a concept and crossbreed it with a rhinoceros of venture capital?
We know that's a stretched metaphor, but the lesson is you don't get to $1 billion bucks without engaging in some form of monstrous animal husbandry.
Well, here at That Startup Show, we are taking the crossbreeding one stage further and making it distinctly Australian. So each week on the show, 3 Aussie startups will be stepping into the pitch ring for a chance to win a spot in the grand final with prizes galore. The winner of each episode will automatically qualify for the final, but will also be taking home a fabulous trophy.
May we present the Golden Uniroo. It's the horniest Aussie since Barnaby Joyce.
And speaking of legends, our pitches tonight are going to be judged by a pair of absolutely legendary guests. Aussie design guru Patrick Llewellyn and Silicon Valley icon, or the woman I want to be when I grow up, Kara Swisher.
If you want to join in the conversation, you can do it by tweeting us at TSU Show or use the hashtag #ThatStartupShow.
But now it's time to cross to our correspondent on the floor, tech reporter David Swan. What's going on down there, Swanee?
Thanks, Ben Ray. Here at Startups, we're all about animals. We have unicorns, we have the Uniroo, we have the sharks of the steam, the Steve Baxters of the world. We have gazelles, and we have zebras. But what about other animals? What animal can you come up with that best represents the startup scene? We're opening up a competition to the audience of who can come up with the best startup animal. The winner will receive a VIP backstage ticket to the That Startup Show Grand Final. We want to see tentacles, we want to see startup-related animals. Get drawing and get creative.
Thanks, Swannie. Well, it's time to meet the amazing guests who will be judging our pitches tonight and giving us their insights into what makes a startup a Uniroo.
Our first guest once had a career advising Australian tech and media companies with an expertise in growth and capital raising. Don't we all wish we knew him then? But these days, he's the CEO of the world's largest graphic design marketplace, with offices in Oakland, Melbourne, and Berlin. From 99 Designs, please welcome the legendary Patrick Llewellyn.
Our next guest is from the US of A, and to put it mildly, would be best described by their president as huge. Her Twitter bio reads, Grumpy Lady of Tech, and with 1.3 million followers, she's the most legendary Grumpy Lady of Tech around. She's the co-founder of Recode and has interviewed everyone from Mark Zuckerberg to Bill Gates to Steve Jobs to Barack Obama, which means she has interviewed my entire mood board except for RuPaul. Direct from Silicon Valley to you, please welcome the almost mythical Kara Swisher.
Welcome, folks. What a way to reboot that startup show.
So to kick things off, we're going to start with a short warm-up game to find out how well Kara and Pat know their entrepreneurs. It's a game we like to call Legend or Myth.
So we're going to ask you whether the following tales about the world's biggest entrepreneurs are justly legendary or plain mythical.
So first, let's test your buzzers. Patrick? Yes, that's a very sweet sound. Kara? That's an even sweeter sound, thank you.
So
this seems unfair.
It does, it does.
Kara has interviewed everyone, and so I'm just...
Everything's going to be fine. You're going to be fine, I promise.
You're in a safe space.
Yeah.
So buzz in and tell us whether the following are myth or legend. First up, Bill Gates once said 640K is more memory than anyone will ever need on a computer.
True. No, he said it. He did.
That's actually a myth. So question 2. Whilst in kindergarten, Oprah wrote to her teacher and said, I don't think I belong here because I know a lot of big words. The teacher immediately agreed and skipped her to the first grade. Myth or legend?
Go for it.
Legend?
Legend. That is technically true, making it part of the O fable and one of my favourite things. And if I could, I would give you a car right now, and you a car, and you get a car, and you get a car, and you get a car, but I don't have any cars, so none of you get cars, I'm sorry.
It's a sad day. Now for our final question, Elon Musk was such a big fan of the X-Men that he named his child after Magneto's alter ego, Max Eisenhardt.
I don't know.
Someone guess.
Myth?
Of course, that is a myth. It was, in fact, the head of the X-Men, Professor Xavier, although it is possible that a child who can read Elon Musk's mind might destroy the world.
Or maybe he'll take us to Mars in a self-driving rocket with the moon as a petrol station.
He will do that, you know, just as soon as he gets home from the cave.
So that's the end of the game, and the winner is... unimportant, but thank you both for your excellent quiz personship.
So before we hear from our startups tonight, I do have a question for you both, which we're all dying to know. And that is, what is the most enduring misconception or startup myth that you've encountered? Kara?
I'd say the most enduring startup myth is that they're actually smart.
Oh. You mean
Sorry
like
to everyone in the room.
The
No.
startup entrepreneurs are
Yeah.
smart, or that they have to be smart?
No, that they're as smart as you think, that they have all the answers. I think they become smarter as they get wealthier, and you give them more credit.
Okay. Is it a prerequisite to making a startup successful to have those smarts in the first place?
No.
Right. You can develop them.
I think luck has a lot to do with it. And I think myth develops afterwards, that we tell ourselves about these people. But in a lot of cases, it's just the luck.
What about you, Patrick? What's one of the most enduring misconceptions or myths about startups?
That launching's the hardest part. I actually think every stage is hard. And you get the launch done, and then you're into the next phase. Scaling's tough. Every step's tough.
So it's an endurance race,
It is.
every step will just be as hard as the last.
Yeah, exactly. I'd like to tell it some other way, but it hasn't been my experience anyway.
Fantastic news.
Execution is the most important part of what everybody's doing, and timing.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. You know, I think the other myth may be like money solves everything, right? Like if I raise more, I spend more,
Right.
I make more. This is an important aspect of it, but ultimately, I don't actually think that's the important part either. It's actually all about how you engage with your community, you know, where you come out of it, where your staff come out of it. You're trying to create something enduring. And money's not necessarily the thing that brings endurance.
eBay never spent all its money. Pinterest didn't spend all its money at all.
Yeah.
In fact, they just had it, but that was different.
Right. And can having a lot of money at the outset sometimes be a liability that this is money to burn?
You know, I can go into companies and I see some of the offices, and if they're too overdone, which many of them are, I worry for the companies when if the kombucha is too fresh.
So it is actually exactly like Silicon Valley, the TV show, then?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is. No, it's a lot
Fantastic.
more than you think.
That's all we need to do. Just watch Silicon Valley and not make any of those mistakes.
Yeah.
It is now time for the first of our startups to step inside the pitch ring.
Now, in baseball, pitching means one thing, and in your bedrooms it means another. But today, we're talking about that very vital part of startup life.
Look, having a great idea is the easy part. Being able to communicate that idea to anyone is how you make your dream a reality, which is a topic for a whole nother episode.
So in each episode of that startup show, we are going to meet 3 keen entrepreneurs who are hoping to become startup champions in their own right.
Tonight's winner will not only go on to our season grand final, but also take home the coveted prize, which proves they are the mythical Australian version of the unicorn company, the Uniroo. Our guest panel, here will judge the pitches on originality, marketability, scalability, and general wokeness.
Now, the rules are simple. Rule 1, you have 2 minutes max for your presentation. Rule 2, at 20 seconds to go, you'll hear this sound. Rule 3, no spoilers for the new season of Game of Thrones.
The panel will give each contestant feedback after their pitch. Now let's meet our first pitcher. She's the CEO of the China Australia Millennial Project, or CAMP.
What did you call me?
It's not all about you, Ben. Please welcome Andrea Miles.
Hey, I'm Andrea, the CEO and co-founder of the China Australia Millennial Project. We're a 4-year-old, multi-million-dollar startup that connects the innovation ecosystems of China and Australia. In essence, we're a cross-border startup that builds cross-border startups. I'm going to tell you about the #1 most digitally engaged country on the planet. I guarantee you've never heard of it. It is also the world's 3rd largest nation. If Chinese millennials comprised a nation of their own, it would be the world's 3rd largest nation. It would be the #1 most digitally engaged. And this is why Goldman Sachs say that this is the most influential generation on the planet. Now, let's zoom in. I want you to think about a business that you know. Perhaps you own one, perhaps a mate of yours does. The #1 most important thing when you're running a business is to know your customers' needs. But what if your customer didn't speak your language all of a sudden? And what if your customer had rapidly changing appetites? How would you keep up? Introducing the newest platform emerging from CAMP, the CAMP site, a Chinese consumer intelligence marketplace where Chinese millennials meet the businesses that need them. So, starting in Australia, there's 250,000 Chinese millennials studying at our universities right now. We introduce them, campers, to complete consumer research tasks for the businesses that need to know how to better serve this customer. The campers jump on the platform, they complete tasks for cash and perks, and the businesses actually get to make more money from better understanding their customer. Now, why does this matter to me? My name is Andrea Miles. That is not a Chinese name. 15 years ago, I took my first ever trip overseas. I went to China and it absolutely changed the way that I create value in this world. It absolutely changed my opportunities as a career person, but also now as a business owner. My name is Andrea. The business is CAMP. The platform is CAMP site. Now that you know, if you've been listening about Chinese millennials, what are you going to do about it? 谢谢, thank you. Thank you so much.
Andrea Miles, everyone. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Andrea.
A pleasure.
Kara, you are an
Yeah.
unbiased international observer. So do you have any questions that you'd like to ask Andrea about her startup?
What I'd like to know is, I don't quite understand what you actually do, what it actually does. What does the
Okay.
platform do?
Sure. So you can think about it like an Airtasker or a freelancer, where small businesses are able to put on task to say, hey, I want to test out this marketing campaign, but I'm not sure if it's actually appropriate for people at this age demographic in this particular city in China, but I want to attract your business. So you can pre-test your campaigns, you can pre-test a product with a particular...
With what Chinese millennials? Are they on the platform? How do you get them on there?
Oh, so I run the China Australia Millennial Project, and we have a community of 100,000 people, but we are shepherding them into ways which they can make more money from being a part of our platform, but also be better served as a customer.
So they give answers to the businesses they have questions and they give answers.
Correct.
And you have to pay them to give answers.
Yeah, absolutely. So if I'm a business, I bid, say, $50 to $150 to get my research back to me in a particular time frame. That spend goes to the Chinese millennial. We clip the ticket on the way
And how
through.
do you know that they are who they say they are?
It's a tiered membership system. So by being a part, just by jumping through the hoops of the survey that they have to complete to jump on, we will know if they are fitting a Chinese millennial demographic or a persona or not.
Patrick, what about you? What are your thoughts? And do you have any questions?
Yeah, so originally when you started pitching, I was like, market survey company. You're essentially helping me capture data from a very targeted group. Are all of the participants here in Australia, or are they back in China?
Well, we've actually identified 6 different personas because there's not really one Chinese millennial in a group that big. So most of them are in Australia, but of course there are so many Chinese millennials who have studied in Australia, they understand this market and then have returned back to China. They have some of their most incredible intel, so it's about actually connecting that through. So yes, underscoring this, there's a lot of data that we can learn about trends of Chinese millennials, but the first step is to connect the businesses with the millennials that need them.
Awesome, so I've got it, you're a marketplace. You feel like you've got the supply side covered.
Yeah.
How are you thinking about finding the businesses who want to?
Absolutely. So as part of our business currently, 75% of our revenue comes from large corporates who want to connect to Chinese millennials. So essentially we developed this as a way for me to not have to answer everybody in my inbox saying, hey, can I hire this person? Or hey, can I get an internship at Alibaba in Melbourne? So we already have on our stable Alibaba, Wesfarmers, David Jones, some of the really big players. This is a massive customer in industries which are rapidly being disrupted. Lo and behold, here comes along this Chinese millennial customer. So we better get busy actually addressing their needs.
Okay.
I'm sorry, how do you make money?
We make money by the business posts a task on the platform, the Chinese millennial gets paid, and we clip the ticket on the way through. So we just sort of take a passive income in the center there. Yeah.
Everyone, that's Andrea Miles. Please put your hands together for Andrea.
Well, now it's time to cross over to Swanee on the floor to see how our myth making is going.
What have we got here?
I've actually got one based on you, David Swan. It's a startup ugly duckling that turns into a swan.
Okay, I haven't been called that since primary school, approximately 20 years ago. How does that relate to startups?
Well, I think when you're starting up, you're an ugly duckling because you have no money, your parents hate you, your girlfriend leaves you, your cat finds a better home, and then you persist, and then some foolish investor invests in you, customers hopefully like you, and then through luck, you turn into a swan.
Right. Or foolish editors give you a journalism job, so I guess that's a thing too. Good job, Rahul. Thank you for that. What have we got over here, and what's your name?
Hi everyone, my name is Michelle. So I thought I'd do something a little bit MVP-like. Actually, I would say this is probably even before the MVP. It is a stick drawing of a wolf, and there's a few of them. So we can see this is the wolf pack, and I think that represents not just the startups themselves, but also the startup community.
Right on. So every startup needs to connect to their wolf pack.
pretty much. So you have a pack, you have a leader, everyone works together. The pack can't survive by itself. It can't survive just by following the one leader either. They all need to band together and work towards a single goal.
Right on. The drawing is awful, but the idea is good.
Yeah, I'll give it to a cartoonist. Okay, to go the next stage.
Yeah, right. You got to start somewhere.
Totally.
Appreciate that. What have we got over here? What's your name?
Okay, so my name is Birute. I've lived in Australia for 3 years now, and I have had the pleasure of hearing this bird sing its song. I think it's called this kookaburra.
Something like that.
So you've got to be a little cuckoo to start a startup, and it sounds like a monkey. So I don't know if you've noticed, right?
Yeah. Truer words never spoken. You got to be a bit cuckoo to start a startup.
And you have to be loud in the marketplace to stand out. So here's my tribute to the kookaburra.
That's excellent, and a good drawing too, so extra points for that. We'll see if one of these guys wins a ticket to the That Startup Show finale, or it might be you at home. It's That Startup Show on Facebook, at TSU Show on Twitter, or Google+, but not really. Back to you, Ben Ray.
You're watching That Startup Show, and we're watching you through some cool Black Ops techs that Mark Zuckerberg lent us. Stop picking your nose.
Our second picture is the founder of Woosh Car, and in his spare time rescues greyhounds, which I assume he puts to work generating power to mine Bitcoin, because that's what I'd do. It's Zubin Pratak.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Zubin, and I'm the founder of Whooska.me. At Wooshka, our mission is to help find you street parking in 5 minutes or less. So why is that important? Well, in the summer of 2016, I found, to my horror, that I was 13 minutes late for the opening of Star Wars Rogue One. Unacceptable. Now, I know I'm being trivial, but the reality is we've all experienced this problem. Maybe we were late to a job interview that was really important. Maybe our pet had ingested something toxic and we couldn't get to the vet in time. This is a fundamental part of our experience of every city, including the world's most livable city. We can't have a rubbish experience when it comes to parking. In fact, it is so fundamental to our experience of cities that we will spend 3,000 hours in our life just circling round and round, looking for parking. 3,000 hours, that's 4 months, people, just looking for parking. Now, of course, people are going to tell you that's because there's just not enough parking. That is simply not true. There's heaps of parking. The problem is, it's invisible parking. We don't know where it is. We can't see through walls. We can't look around corners. We have no idea where to go. So now imagine a world or a technology that could automatically detect when someone leaves a car parking spot and suggests that information to other users in the vicinity. That's exactly what Wooshka does. Its prototype is so good that it'll automatically detect when a user has left and suggested that spot. We added City of Melbourne's data, we added disability data, and for the last several months, hundreds of people use Wooshka to find parking in the CBD in 5 minutes or less. Tomorrow, we intend to be in the car console where we belong, because in the future, the smart car will speak to the smart city, and you will be smart people using Wooshka. We need funding, we need access to strategic partnership, especially with vehicle manufacturers. Please get on board. Help us make the world truly a better place. Thank you.
Thank you, Zubin. So, Patrick, did Zubin find a parking space in your heart?
I catch the train, so I'm a big believer in public transport, but I have experienced the pain. So tell us a bit more about how it works. I'm intrigued about how you know when I'm leaving a spot and one's coming in.
Yeah. Great question. So thanks, Patrick. Our modern phones are pretty powerful processors and have great sensors, and you can work out pretty much 95% of the time when someone's leaving a spot just by the, we've written the algorithms that detect activity. And that was our prototype. Our entire intention was to prove it's technologically possible to do this. And so we've done that. Since then, we've also added public data sets like City of Melbourne. Sensor data helps a great deal. That's why it definitely 100% works every time in the City of Melbourne. But it's still day zero as far as we're concerned to prove out the technology. Does that answer your question?
Not really. Are there sensors in these parking spots or what?
There are some in the city of Melbourne, but we built it independent of that to prove that your phone could automatically detect when you've driven away from a spot and suggest that spot.
If people are using your app, right?
Correct, or 100%.
So San Francisco's littered with this kind of company, parking companies, people that picked up your car, dropped them off, they all got funded and then closed down.
Yeah.
Also self-driving cars.
Yep.
Smart cities without cars in it. It's not much of a future. Parking in the cities is going to be a thing that's not going to happen in 20 years or less.
Perhaps in a few cities, but I know for a fact in Asia, where I'm from, it's a long while before we're going to have autonomous vehicles there. Parking is going to be a problem for a vast majority of the world, and we can't just take a first world perspective on this. This is a global problem.
So you would aim it at developing countries, or
I would aim it.
One would imagine that you'd make more money in developed countries at this, because people are buying time and convenience. People that have money want time and convenience, correct? Right?
Yeah, look, I truly believe that until autonomous cars are truly ubiquitous, there is a role for something in this. The fact that you do have a lot of players globally trying to do it proves that the problem is unsolved.
No. You have a lot of players that got out of the business, who lost money in this business.
Sure.
I mean, I just know, because San Francisco tests everything out.
Sure.
I joke, I always make the same joke, I just made it in Hong Kong. San Francisco's assisted living for millennials, so we have every single kind of app, and this one just didn't work at all.
Yeah.
And these are the laziest people on earth, so I'm kind of perplexed of, like, who would use this precisely?
Well, I remain optimistic because I do believe timing matters. And I think there is a move to a smarter city environment where people are likely to adopt this.
Right.
I'm aware that of all the experiments in San Francisco that didn't work, and I sometimes wonder if it was just timing, because we know Facebook's timing was better than MySpace's.
Different. That's not right, but okay. But last question. So if millennials are not using cars, they're using Uber, Lyft, and then eventually self-driving cars, who is your target audience, and then how do you make money? Again, I don't know.
So by that time, because we don't expect, our hypothesis is that autonomous cars aren't going to be a mainstream, ubiquitous feature for at least another quarter of a century.
Right.
By that time, we will evolve the technology to work with autonomous cars to identify data sets that we need for autonomy.
But autonomous cars don't park.
They may do, and they may still need to know what restrictions are applicable on a given street, what's a loading zone and what's not.
So how do you make money?
By licensing it to be installed in cars, and also working with governments to take their data sets and give them back data, because it's really an exchange that's required.
Fantastic. Thank you very much
Thank you.
for your time. Here's Zubin. Let's hear it for Zubin, everybody. We'll be back with our third picture and the judging soon, but now we're going to dive a bit deeper with our panellists and get their take on this week's theme.
So, Kara, in recent times, we've been confronted with some brutal realities about what were some of our favourite tech companies. What have we learned, and more specifically, what can startups learn from those lessons? Well, I mean, you're talking about Facebook and privacy and all the things that are going on, and the Russian hacking, and it's not hacking, it wasn't hacking. I think we become aware of what they've been doing since they were born. These companies have always been sucking your information in, they've been using it, they've been misusing it, they've been taking advantage of it. And this is not something new for Facebook. Facebook, throughout its history, has had a history of privacy violations. And so the question is, if you're a startup, how ethically do you want to behave as a startup? And I think most startups, their businesses are to suck in information and regurgitate it. And so that's the deal. I mean, two issues that have really come to the forefront are ethics and also transparency. And take a company like Facebook, trying to rehabilitate its image now with a campaign emphasising those two things. Are they worth emphasising from the start when you start making a startup yourself? Well, one would assume, but if your business is advertising, and you can suck in information, your business is sucking in people's information and using it. And so that is your business. Facebook is what it is, and to pretend otherwise is to tell yourself a lie. And so every click that you do for them makes them money. You are the, they don't like to hear this, but you are the product. If you're fine with that and fine with the privacy implications, and you trust these companies like Google, Facebook, Twitter, all of them, that's a question. Twitter just got rid of 70 million accounts that were fake.
Why didn't they do that last year? Why didn't they do that the year before? Why? Because now they're getting pressure. So you have to wonder what they're doing wrong now.
The revelations about Cambridge Analytica and Facebook were a massive scandal when they happened.
Right.
But at the same time, Facebook is such a massive behemoth. So does something like that scandal actually do lasting damage, or is Facebook a company that's largely impervious to damage?
Well, the stock is still as high as it ever was. Mark Zuckerberg is as rich as he ever was. I think people are using it. They're seeing no lack of usage. I think what's going to kill Facebook is what kills every other tech company over history, which is lack of innovation, a better product that comes along, the next big thing. I mean, we once thought Microsoft was going to rule the world, and they aren't. So there's a company right now that exists somewhere in the world in the mind of someone that's going to replace Facebook.
You think that's there already somewhere, but you don't you don't know what that company is, and we don't know what it is yet.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it'll be an AR, VR. You just don't know what the revelation is going to be, and I think that's what's exciting about tech. At the same time, this is a company there's never been a company that has touched more people across the globe than this one. This is really, it's the entire human race is somehow affiliated with either Instagram or Facebook or WhatsApp or Oculus maybe someday. So it's quite a powerful company, but we'll see where it goes. Some people in the US think it should be broken up because of that, but we'll see. Probably not.
What would it be broken up by? Laws?
If you had politicians with any backbone, but we don't. And I'm so sorry for Donald Trump. But then you gave us Rupert Murdoch, who created Donald Trump.
Yes.
So it's an even
Tit for tat.
Thanks, Australia.
We can say nothing because we want to continue to have jobs in media.
Yeah. he came to the US as an immigrant, right?
It's your problem now.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
Well, the world's problem, really.
Patrick, what are the biggest lessons that you've learned throughout your journey that you could pass on? And I want you to bear in mind that I will be fact-checking everything that you tell me on Wikipedia, which is very reliable.
Yes. Look, for me, I mean, the power of observation's been really important. You know, our founding story is a little different in that we observed a community that was in a forum doing what we do. We're able to take that community and work with it and create, you know, a pretty amazing platform. And now I see, you know, observation powering everything that we do within our organisation. You know, I was taught very early on about the power of listening. You know, my first job out of university was a sales and marketing cadetship, and I was taught that, you know, the first thing, selling's all about this, not about this. And, you know, I think that's been really valuable to me in business. You know, the reality is everything we do is driven by our community, our customers, and the way in which we observe them, observation of competitors, and then listening, you know, most importantly, listening to the team that works for us, because they're the ones who, you know, power the business. You know, there's no evil genius at 99 Designs. We're actually only as good as the sum of our parts, and so that is the community and then everyone who works together.
Do you think that's a bit of a common problem, the talking without listening? Because there is so many people out there with great ideas. They've come up with the best idea ever, but sometimes there's a bit of a lack of sounding out as to whether the audience for it exists. Does that audience, does that community really have to come first?
I mean, understanding your audience is at the heart of all problems. And I think most of the time we hear of startups, the ones who aren't successful, the ones who don't know what their audience is, right? They are trying to solve a problem that may not exist other than for them. And so for us, you know, that's why we were lucky, because we could see this audience interacting naturally, which we will then be able to take. I think, I think not listening, not sharing early, you know, like I think particularly for the Australian audience, you know, one of the things that Kara has seen in the Valley and I saw firsthand in the Valley is everyone's keen to share with you their ideas. Whereas here, I still get told that I need to sign an NDA before someone will actually tell me what they're doing, which at that point I turn off and say, thanks. But like, so I think that notion of the idea behind the Valley and the sharing is your ideas will get tested a lot more robustly. And so you can actually start to learn the pitfalls of what it is you're trying to attempt. Because Kara said it best, execution is everything, and ideas come and go pretty readily and freely, and there's a million amazing ideas out there that are still to be executed, but it's that execution part that comes, and I think that comes mostly from observation and listening.
I mean, listening is one thing, but then to be able to respond to it and then, as you say, execute it is another that requires agility and that requires resources. So how easy is it to be responsive and to be agile?
I think it's a constant challenge. I think it's hard. We obviously set out plans every year. You create a plan to break it, and so that agility is part of that, but that comes from being aware enough to observe. Funding's an issue for everyone, like resources, so you actually always are trying to make the best decisions of what you have, right? So how is this team going to be best deployed? How do we take advantage of our workforce or the capital that we have at hand? And so that's, prioritization, and then it's it's actually what you're talking about, real agile, listening, action, observation, and then trying to make something happen.
Do you think there needs to be more collaboration between startups?
I think it's getting better. I think the fact that we've got places like this and accelerators throughout Melbourne, we're seeing community hubs like the one that I participate in Richmond. The fact is we're starting to get there. There's great programs like StartMate, taking young Aussie entrepreneurs to the States and immersing them in environments there. So I'm as enthusiastic as I've ever been.
You also have the same problems. You all have the same problems.
Correct.
And
That's
so
right.
if entrepreneurs can share those problems, they're often common.
Yeah.
There's probably a list of 50, right? And it's the same issue over and over. And so rather than replay the record over and over again, it's better to have groups of people participate.
Yeah, and I think we're lucky. I think our community is evolving. There is a maturity. There's some really successful entrepreneurs in this city, in cities throughout Australia. We get access to them and they provide advice. And then to Kara's point, we learn from each other. That's the important part, right?
So folks, one enduring idea about entrepreneurship, perhaps perpetuated by certain TV shows, not us, is you need decent investment to start to become a unicorn. How true is that? How fundamental is that significant first investment in making a startup grow?
In Silicon Valley, there's so much money. We use the expression, there's not enough rat holes to shove the money down. And so there's so much money. Capital is not the problem. It's never the problem.
But when that money gets burnt up, do people feel burnt? Are they less willing to trust to invest again?
No. Travis Kalanick has a new fund. No, not at all. I think capital is the last problem you have. The first problem you have is talent, getting the right people. Obviously, product is critical, although you can have a great product and if it's badly executed, it doesn't matter. So I think product and people are the two key things. Everything else doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Does that resonate with you, Patrick, that initial significant investment is not necessarily a prerequisite to success for a startup?
Well, absolutely. We bootstrapped for 3 years, right? You look at Australia, some of Australia's, arguably our most successful company, Atlassian, was bootstrapped, right? Mike and Scott didn't take money for 12 years or something. So, I think that does resonate. I don't think in Australia there is not a lot. There's not nearly the same level of capital.
No, not the same number, but I don't think it's money that...
No, it's always execution, right?
Yeah.
It's, and access to talent is critical to that. We have a good talent pool here. We've always had our engineering team here in Melbourne, but it's getting harder and harder.
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing, policies not necessarily supporting that, right? Ultimately, we want to get everyone in here who are as smart as possible and have them stay.
You have to have a strong immigrant policy. I think the United States is going to be badly affected by these appalling immigration policies by the Trump administration. All it says to the United States, we're closed for business.
And does that mean other countries will take advantage of that?
Either the people will stay in those countries or they'll go back. Look at China. They're going crazy with entrepreneurship there because the government is being incredibly supportive of it. Now, it's a very different system there, obviously, and some of the values that around surveillance and everything else are troubling. But when you don't have cultures die because of lack of diversity. That's how innovation dies. And so you have to wonder, the U.S. leads the world in innovation over the past 10, 15 years. what's going to happen, whether it's going to be in Tel Aviv, or which is also entrepreneurial, or India, or anywhere else. But I can sure tell you the messages the United States is sending right now, and the attacks on the tech industry by this administration, it says to me that there's a lot of opportunity elsewhere in the world for entrepreneurship, for sure.
Thank you so much, Kara, and thank you, Patrick. We will be back soon with our third pitch, and our panel will decide on the winner. But first, here's Alan Jones, the good one, with the story of a startup legend to get you ready for bedtime.
Oh, hello, founders. I didn't see you there. You know, this book has a lot to say about self-discovery. And I've got a story about self-discovery. Would you like to hear it? It's a story called Sin Developer. Once upon a time, there was a lowly programmer in a huge but caring multinational. They were all very happy until one day their manager died and was replaced with a cruel step manager and her 2 step system admins, whose appearance isn't important. One night, the programmer wanted to go to a networking event where there was going to be a representative of a major game studio. But the evil step system admins instead made them work late, debugging the stack so that they could go themselves. As the programmer sat working on the night of the meetup, she suddenly heard a voice. "Hello," it said. "I'm your fairy digital assistant. How may I help you today?" "Oh, fairy digital assistant, I want a chance to get seed funding for my mobile game, Stranger's Kitchen, where you're racing against the clock to put away crockery as fast as it gets washed, but get this, you don't know which cupboard..." "Oh, all right. Spare me the details," said the fairy digital assistant. And with that, it used Uber to magically transform a Kia Rio into a taxi, and Fiverr to turn 2 out-of-work actors into a fawning entourage. Finally, she booked a drone delivery of a Patagonia summer jacket. "But remember," said the fairy digital assistant, "the bookings all expire at midnight." So, our programmer went to the networking session and wowed everyone with her distinctive ideas, personal drive, and better than non-existent personal skills. But when the calendar alert buzzed at 5 minutes to midnight, she raced out without leaving a business card. Fortunately, the fairy digital assistant had sold all of her personal metadata, and so the studio representative was able to easily find her address, phone number, and blood type. She hooked up the funding needed to get the game to market, where it was a huge hit, allowing her to set up her own development studio. And while none of their subsequent games were as successful, they still had a good run. So the moral of the story is, never let Alexa learn your weaknesses. The end. And now it's time for bed, little founders. And just remember, at midnight, you'll turn into a genius with a billion-dollar idea. Good night.
Okay, our third pitcher tonight is helping other small humans with their startups. I don't know if this makes this some kind of Inception situation. It is Alan Lalich.
Kiddsbay is a world's first kid-friendly community that allows kids to launch a business online on a global scale. Kiddsbay currently has 2 co-founders, myself and my wife. What problem are we trying to solve? 65% of children today will end up in jobs that don't even exist yet. And as parents, we actually worry about this. What's the solution? Kiddsbay. We believe that Kiddsbay would allow kids to tap into their passions, their interests, look for opportunities and solve problems. We truly believe that Kiddsbay would allow kids to become self-sufficient. Currently, we're at a Mural D, and we've just launched our MVP. Where are we going next? We're looking to find our 3rd co-founder. We're looking to build version 2 of Kiddsbay.
And we're always happy to talk to investors, partners, mentors, or anyone who just wants to have a coffee with us and say, hey, how can we help kids kickstart and unleash the entrepreneurial spirit? My name is Alan Lulich. I'm the co-founder of Kiddsbay. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Alan. Kara, what are your initial thoughts?
God, I don't even know where to begin. I don't even know how you do that. How do you actually help kids become entrepreneurs?
Yeah, certainly. So kids collaborate with their parents online. So parents create the account and they add the child as the user, and together it's a collaboration tool. So kids with their parent actually go through a series of questions. It's like the lean canvas model, but we've actually brought it down for kids. So there's a series of questions. What problems are kids passionate about now? And then there's a step-by-step guide in terms of how to actually provide a solution to that problem. And an example of that is that recently we did a workshop, and kids, a child who's a great writer, was passionate about stopping bullying in her school. So what she thought about is writing stories and encouraging kids to stop bullying in schools. So she's actually going to launch a business and educating other kids, not just in her school, but in other schools in her area about, hey, if there's a bullying problem in your school, here's a book, share it with kids and teach kids actually how to stop bullying.
And how do you know kids are protected on this platform?
Yes, certainly.
Because doing businesses with kids are hard.
The parent themselves are the account holder, so the parent actually creates the account and they actually add the child or children. So the parent's the administrator of the account.
So you're just providing them tools to become entrepreneurs?
Yeah, absolutely. We're providing the tools and resources, absolutely.
And they pay you for this?
Yeah, it's going to be a subscription-based model, so they'll be paying for it.
Except once they get their business, what do they need you for?
Yeah, so they can launch their business online through Kiddsbay. But sometimes they may not actually need to launch an online business. And a prime example of that is that if a child wants to set up a dog walking business, so we'll actually give them the marketing tools of actually how to market in the local area to find opportunity to actually say, is there an owner in the area who's a dog owner? And are they willing to actually, do a sharing economy where the kid can actually walk that dog around the block and the dog owner will pay some money for it. So it doesn't always have to be an online business.
But how do you, I don't understand how you get the person whose dog wants to be walked on.
So they're marketing in the area, they'll be providing leaflets, drop-offs, or word of mouth, or the parent might share their business idea on Facebook and say, is anyone out there?
I guess my biggest question is, what do they need you? If you're an entrepreneurial kid, what do they need you for?
Well, not every kid's an entrepreneur.
Right.
So there's going to be the 1% of kids who are entrepreneurs, yes, and they're the self-starters, and we've actually come across that. But sometimes they do need a little bit of help, as we all do, where others who actually need hand-holding, and that's where the collaboration really comes hand in hand with the child and the parent. We also have Marvin, our bot, who actually pop up on the screen and say, how is it we can actually help you? So there'll be a Q&A. That will appear on the platform as well, or within the community. Also, other kids will be able to share their success stories as well. So it's not just providing the tools to set up a business, it's also about sharing. How do other kids do it? So it's all about a collaborative tool.
Patrick, what about you? Do you have any questions for Alan?
I think we covered a lot. I see. Basically, you're an education business. Is that how you see yourself?
We class ourselves as edutech at this point in time, but we see ourselves going to parents direct, schools and private enterprise as well. So we're not just pushing up one channel, there'll be multiple channels of distribution.
Okay, a big hand for Alan, everyone.
Thank you.
Alan Lulich and his startup, Kiddsbay.
Well, Kara and Patrick have a tough decision ahead of them for who wins tonight's episode. But while they're deliberating, we'll cross back to our guest correspondent, Swannie, who's got the most incredible hybrid mythical beast creatures to represent startups ever.
Thanks, Ben Ray. It's not technically an animal, but that's why I like it. It's a unicorn. And it's corn. And it's uni. I don't know what it means, but it was here when I arrived here after talking to some of the pitchers over there. And luckily, @Bionic Ben left his handle there, so we can award him the grand final prize of a backstage ticket to that startup show finale. Round of applause for @Bionic Ben. It's creative. It's not even an animal. And that's how creative we can get here in the Melbourne tech ecosystem.
And it is that time of the night now. Our judges are about to announce our episode winner.
But if you reckon they got it wrong, you can go to our Facebook page and vote for who you thought should have won in the People's Choice Award. The winner of that may end up as the favourite for the wild card in the grand final.
Now, judges, who is tonight's winner? Who will be the first winner of this Uniroo?
Well, I think we agreed that we thought that Andrea's company had the most promise. Linking people is critical, and it's a group of people that, doing surveys, it has a lot more potential to make money.
The winner is Andrea for Camp, everyone. Big round of applause.
I got it. Oh my God! Can we do a bit of this? Yeah. This is so exciting. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Like, a little more than I probably should. That's amazing. Thank you.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
And Andrea goes in the running to compete in the grand final, where she can win some incredible prizes.
And that's all we have time for tonight. Will you please give it up for our panel, the one and only Patrick Llewellyn and the legendary Kara Swisher. And of course, thank you to our pitchers.
Next week, jump on your CubeSats, crack open a space beer and get ready to go boldly to a galaxy far, far away as we explore the furthest realms of space tech.
We'll see you on the launch pad then.
How do you think you went, mate?
Yeah, all right. Some really tough questions, which are the right questions to ask. But I truly believe in this, so I'm quite happy with how it went.
There were tough questions. Had you prepared for them mentally, or were there a few curveballs that you didn't see coming?
No, I was pretty prepared, because if you're in touch with the industry, these are the questions that are asked, and that's why I said they're the right questions for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
A burning question I had that didn't get asked by the judges: do you have an entrepreneurial kid?
Yes, I do. I've actually got two entrepreneurial kids. One's at the current moment building a slime business, and the other one's actually looking at creating his own cryptocurrency business.
Who's tougher, Kara Swisher or an investor?
I would be surprised if Kara Swisher was not an investor herself as well. So.
Trick question and you nailed it.